Welcome to the Culture Revolution. I'm Jennifer Reyntjes, the Director of Talent Management for AlixPartners' fastest growing business unit. I'm responsible for all of the learning and development for over 300 consultants. And over the last couple years, all of the things that I've implemented with my firm have been adopted globally wide for our billion-dollar business. If you're not familiar with AlixPartners, we're known for dealing with high-stakes situations with our clients that are ripped from the headlines when it really matters.
And I'm Kate Nugent. I'm the Director of Learning for Ariel. We are a communications training firm that enables people to have true influence. And we do that by helping them write, speak, and sell with impact and emotional intelligence.
So we've included with our presentation some questions that give you an opportunity to take what we call the CLO challenge. Some thought-provoking questions to think about from your organizational perspective as well as your learner's perspective. And so what I'd like to do today is start by talking about how we look at our organizations. So for example, when it comes to our development and training, we love these perfect little bubble diagrams, right? Everything's neat and tidy and wraps beautifully around this idea of the shared vision and culture. The reality, it's more like this, the spaghetti chart, right? All this chaos, all of this movement, and right in the center of that is your employee. And your employee's level of satisfaction is heavily driven by all of these variables around this development environment. So what's our approach at AlixPartners for instilling a personal experience with ownership? It all starts out with how your executives buy into your program. So it's one thing for them to say, we have a world-class training program. It's another thing for them to say, come join our entrepreneurial environment. We're a high-performing team in this entrepreneurial culture, and to come build a business inside of it, and we're gonna give you the support and training that you need to be successful. And so, how did I get that kind of buy-in from my executives? Well, I did it through tangible business results. So we were able to drive metrics that were incredible, that we tied back to a lot of the ways that we wrapped our development in our culture. And so, for example, we increased the number of managing director promotes internally from 5% to 65%. And we did that in just 4 years. And what we found in that time period is that those managing directors were outperforming our external hires on almost every metric. So we were driving phenomenal profitability, revenue growth, growth of our firm. And it was very exciting to be able to see that those things were transcending our organization. In addition to that, we have sustained growth, 20 to 30% a year. And we're on track to do that again this year. Our turnover, ideally, remains very low. So right now, we're running at 9% for this year, which is a repeat of last year. So people are very committed, and when you compare that to our competitors that are averaging around 25%, it's really a remarkable phenomenon. And we really can help tie that back to our development program because all of our new hires, as they join the firm and we talk to them about why did you join, within the top two reasons every time is around our development and culture. And so that's really become a huge draw. So, how did we design our learning environment? Well, the first point is that we kept it simple. We tried to not overly complicate it. And we also believe that a one-size-fits-all model is really not what we wanted. But we wanted some cultural glue that we could pull things together and have that make a difference for our employees, but we could all have that uniqueness of being united together. So essentially, what that became for us was really a seamless learning environment. And so we have some key tenets that are really meaningful for our culture. Now, we recognize that what worked for us may not be the perfect thing for your culture. And so that ties back to some of the questions we were talking about at the beginning. You have to think about this in terms of your culture as well. But for us, these are the things that really made a difference. So first and foremost, each employee sets his or her own desired pace or trajectory. And so what this does is it means that some people might want to be a rocket person and they just can't go fast enough. We have others that'll say that I'm starting out slow and then I'm going to go fast. And then some people say, look, I just want to enjoy the ride. I want a quality of work-life balance. That's what's important to me. You can imagine just having conversations and looking at things in these terms really make a difference for people in just how they go about beginning to launch their career with us. Also, we provide building a business model. And what our building a business model is a version of a competency model that we would say is AlixPartners style. The idea is that it's not a check the box. Our building a business model is an opportunity to give people a view of what good looks like. So we have something that we can all have a shared vision around, and it really makes a big difference. So taking all of that, we then have each person create a highly developed, highly tailored development plan. And what's important about that is that we don't even care if they use our form. We say, look, you don't like our form? Make your own. We're delighted with that. If you want to write it on napkins, do that. The point is that you capture it so that you can share it with other people. The sharing of that is where you really evolve it, right? Because now other people can give you feedback, can give you suggestions, can buy in. How can they help you? And so it makes a tremendous difference just in how committed people become to it because they own that. And then each of our employees has a mentor and a review advocate. Yes, we are big fans of the 360 concept at the end of the year. So I know it's a trend that some companies are moving away from that, but we believe the feedback that you receive throughout the year, each piece of feedback is like a tile of a mosaic. And we think it's really important at the end of the year that you sit down and put all of those tiles together and get a strategic view of your year. Also, what's unique is that for us, 20% of our annual feedback process or discussion is really backward-looking, and 80% of it is forward-looking. So we really are focused on how can we help you on that development trajectory. And again, we aren't basing it on a Likert scale. It's all about where are you on your development trajectory. So it's very important, to build these tenets in for your culture and the behaviors you're trying to drive. So when you think about it, our firm, we're not big fans of training tracks. And that might send a little bit of a shiver up your spine. But what we found over time, and it worked really well for instilling this ownership, is we acknowledge that our employees are at different points in their career, and they all join us and become, a member of our team when at different stages in their careers. But we want to meet the learner where they're at. And so if you look at this chart, for example, I can give you a wonderful example of an employee that started a few years back. He was a junior manager, and he came to us, but he was very commercially talented. This is a guy that had an instinct for selling. If we had put him in a normal track for an employee at the level he was at, he would have spent a lot of time training around building his commercial skills. What he really needed were some basic core consulting skills, which would have really been directed at someone more junior than him, and our most advanced training skills. So this story ends wonderfully in that in the first 6 months he was with us, he sold $5 million of work as a mid-level manager. And today he's a very successful managing director with us. So again, if we had taken a very conventional approach to this, it wouldn't have been as effective for him. He wouldn't have been as productive as quickly, and he probably wouldn't have had the same level of satisfaction that he did. So at the end of the day, when you look at this, our capabilities and methods are table stakes. These are the things that your training is required to do. That's very important to lay out the basics. But within all of those trainings, we wrap in behavioral, which gives our people a sense of what good looks like. What are those expectations? And then our secret sauce, that mindset gets woven in. And so for us, at the end of the day, we view it as you can ignite your CEO and your boards by really making this about your business and about the culture. And as you do that, you can wrap your training in your culture and steep your culture in your training.
So you as learning leaders, as you think about going out and trying to ignite buy-in from your executives on your training plan, really the way that you communicate that message is the way that we've been working with AlixPartners. We've been working around this idea of executive presence. How do you get your messages across, and how do you inspire people to action? So the way that we define presence at Ariel is a very specific way, and I'd like to share that with you. The ability to authentically connect with your audience in order to influence and inspire them. So this may seem like a lofty goal to you. I think, as Jennifer mentioned, the ability to have executive presence is a huge competency for the management consultant, especially the elite management consultant. So we've been working tirelessly to try to build those skills in the consultants. So what's behind this big, lofty idea of presence? Very specific behaviors. Because we at Ariel, we are originally from the theater, and we have received a lot of our IP and our content from the skills of the actor. What we've done is we've assigned to presence some very specific behaviors, and I'll share those with you. So on this grid, you will see that to the left, there are specific signals, things like body language, eye contact, voice. And to the right of that are the high versions, the high presence versions, and then the low presence versions. So what we are coaching people to do in order to have their messages heard is to really try to infuse high presence into their communication. So for example, eye contact, right? If my statement about my leadership, my organizational culture is something like, our organizational culture is emotionally intelligent, collaborative, and sometimes lacks accountability, all right? So if that's my message, I'm gonna really try to have that eye contact, right? Our organizational culture is emotionally intelligent, collaborative, and sometimes lacks accountability. If I'm in low presence, I'm undermining my message. Our organizational culture is emotionally intelligent, collaborative, and sometimes lacks accountability, okay? I'll try one other on this list, right? The whole idea of having your feet planted when you communicate, right? Being solid, almost like you have a string pulling from the top of your head. My organizational culture is collaborative, emotionally intelligent, and sometimes lacks accountability, as opposed to my organization is emotionally intelligent and collaborative and sometimes lacks accountability. Okay? You see the difference there. You see how you can either support or undermine your message. So, as we move forward, we really want to talk about how do we continue to ignite that executive buy-in? Jennifer.
So for us, it's important that you do take a look at the gap. And as you're thinking about that, what's the organizational view? What is your employees' view? And what's in it for them? And key to being really successful with that, you have to find things that fit your culture. And that's part of why we picked the Ariel group as a partner, because they fit perfectly into our culture. And so it was super easy to just bring them in and plug them into what we wanted. Before, we were trying to build lots of custom trainings around presence, and we weren't even hitting the mark as closely as we do now. And the beauty of that was we were also able to tailor that, and we plugged into that the idea that we videotaped people, but even more importantly, we added an element of coaching. So then after people finish our presence training, they are able then to go on and work one-on-one with the coach. So again, we weave that development concept around the culture, and when you put it together, you actually end up with that highly customized environment. So the key here is to take away from our session some of the thoughts that we share with you today, ideas about our culture at AlixPartners and how we tackled some of it. Look at where those gaps are. Think strategically about how to put it together, and now take the next action steps. Figure out what that is for your environment. Thank you so much for your time and attention today.